I still remember that morning, like it was yesterday. The sun was spilling through my kitchen window, worn and golden, touching everything it could. The worn-out table, my little plant on the sill, even the half-frosted cake I'd been working on since dawn. I baked it myself, vanilla with lemon glaze, just the way I liked it. I was humming along to an old Dolly Parton tune when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was Linda, my daughter. I smiled, wiping my hands on my apron. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, but her tone, it wasn't sweet. It was tight, serious. "Mom, we need to talk about your birthday." I laughed softly. "Oh, did you and Mark finally decide on the restaurant?" There was a pause. Then she said it, plain and cold. "Actually, there won't be a party. We're not wasting money on that circus." I thought I'd misheard her. What? That circus, she repeated. "Mom, you don't need all that anymore. You're 70. You should be resting, not pretending you're still 30. I could hear Mark's voice in the background, careless as ever. "She's too old for parties now, babe. Don't stress about it." My hands felt heavy, my heart heavier, but I didn't let my voice crack. "All right," I said quietly. "If that's how you feel, then no problem." Linda exhaled, relieved, like she'd just checked something off her list. ... "Glad you understand, Mom. We'll grab lunch next week, okay?" "Sure," I said, even though we both knew we wouldn't. When the call ended, the house went still. The ticking clock on the wall was the only sound, each tick reminding me how empty that kitchen felt without laughter. I looked at the cake I'd baked, my suey little cake, and for a second, I almost threw it away. But then I didn't. I lit one candle, sat down alone, and whispered, "Happy birthday, Caro." That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your thoughts loud. Every creak in the floor sounded like the echo of something missing. I kept thinking about Linda's voice, flat, dismissive, like my birthday was just another item on her to-do list she could cross off and forget. 70 years, and that's what it came down to. A circus. A waste of money. I walked into the living room, turned on the lamp, and sat down in my old recliner. The same one my late husband, Frank, used to fall asleep in while watching baseball. The leather was cracked now, but it still held the shape of his shoulders, and the smell of the life we'd built together. I looked around at the family photos lining the shelves. Linda's high school graduation picture, her wedding day. Little Chloe, my granddaughter, holding a balloon at her 5th birthday party. All those moments I helped make happen. All those memories I'd poured myself into. And now, I was too old for parties. I chuckled quietly, but it wasn't a happy sound. It was the kind of laugh that comes from disappointment too deep for tears. Then, something inside me just flipped. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the ghost of the woman I used to be. But I stood up, grabbed a notepad, and started writing. Not a letter, not a complaint, a plan. I wrote down every single thing I'd ever wanted to do, but put off because life got in the way. Because I was too busy being someone's wife, someone's mom, someone's grandma. Things like take a road trip down Route 66, dance again, real dancing, not just swaying in the kitchen. Visit the ocean alone, just once. Reconnect with Grace, my best friend from nursing school. By the time I finished that list, the clock read 3:07 a.m. And I smiled, a real smile, not the polite one I used to wear. I realized something that night. I didn't need a party to celebrate turning 70. I needed a life that still felt alive. And for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could still have one. I closed my notebook and blew out the candle on the table. The flame went out, but inside me, something had just begun to burn. The morning after my long, sleepless night, I made myself some coffee, black, the way Frank used to drink it. The air smelled like rain, and the sky outside my window was heavy with clouds. I remember thinking, fitting, looks like even the weather's tired today. I sat by the window, flipping through my notebook, the one with my new list. The pages felt alive in my hands. For once, the blank lines didn't scare me. They called to me. Then the doorbell rang. It startled me. I don't get many visitors these days. When I opened the door, there she was, Chloe, my granddaughter. Her face lit up the doorway, like sunshine breaking through the clouds. "Grandma," she said, throwing her arms around me before I could even say a word. I held her tight, breathing in that soft scent of strawberry shampoo. "What are you doing here, sweet pea? Doesn't your mom have work today?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "Yeah, but I wanted to see you." We sat in the kitchen, her legs swinging off the chair, as she watched me pour her some chocolate milk, her favorite since she was 5. After a moment, she said softly, "Grandma, Mom told me there's no birthday party this year." I froze for a second, my hands resting on the counter. "Yeah," I said, smiling gently. "Guess she's got other priorities." Chloe frowned. "That's dumb. You always make everyone's birthday special." I couldn't help but chuckle. Life's funny like that, honey. Sometimes people forget who taught them how to celebrate in the first place. She tilted her head, thinking hard, like she was trying to solve a puzzle way too big for her age. Then she whispered, "Grandma, if Mom won't throw you a party, maybe we can?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and my heart swelled. Her eyes were just like Linda's when she was little, before the world hardened her edges. Oh, sweetheart. 2 days after Chloe's visit, I found myself staring at the phone again. There was a name in my contacts I hadn't pressed in almost 20 years. Grace Turner. My best friend from nursing school. My partner in crime. The woman who used to tell me, "Carol, life's too damn short to keep waiting for permission to live it." I don't know why I hesitated. Maybe because calling her would mean admitting how far I'd drifted from who I used to be. But something about Chloe's words, "Maybe we just need balloons and courage," kept echoing in my mind. So I picked up the phone and dialed. The line rang twice before a voice I'd know anywhere came through, still full of laughter. "Carol Miller? Well, paint me shocked. I thought you'd run off with a rock band or something." I laughed so hard, I actually had to wipe my eyes. "Grace Turner, you sound exactly the same." "Ha! You sound older," she teased, "but sweeter. What's going on, old girl?" And just like that, 20 years melted away. We talked for hours about old times, about Frank, about how both our kids had grown distant in the same cold, polite way. Finally, she said, "You remember that promise we made when we turned 40? I frowned. "Which one? The one about never dating lawyers or never dying bored?" "The second one," she said, laughing. "Never dying bored. You still keeping that promise?" I looked around my quiet house, the same one I'd lived in for decades. Every picture frame a reminder of who I used to be. And I said softly, "No, but I think I'm about to start again." Grace paused. "Well, I was planning a weekend at the coast. Why don't you come with me? My niece canceled. You could use the ocean air." I almost said no. Old habits die hard, excuses even harder. But then I remembered that list sitting on my nightstand. Visit the ocean alone, just once. "I'll come," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. Grace laughed. "There's my girl. I'll pick you up Friday morning. Pack light and bring that wild heart of yours." When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Anticipation. Like life was stirring again, whispering, "See, you're not done yet." That night, I stood by my window, watching the moon ripple across the clouds. The ocean was still days away, but already I could feel the tide changing inside me. Grace pulled up in her old blue convertible just after sunrise. That car looked like it had stories of its own. Rusted in the corners, a little dent in the door, but the radio still worked like a charm. She honked twice and yelled from the driveway, "Come on, Carol, we've got wind to chase!" I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long time. I hadn't even packed much. Just a small suitcase, my favorite cardigan, and that notebook I'd started a few nights ago. As I locked the door behind me, I whispered, "Don't wait up," to the empty house. And for the first time, I meant it. Grace had the top down, and as we hit the highway, the wind tangled through my silver hair. The air smelled like pine, and the soda danced across the dashboard. It felt like freedom. Not the kind you shout about, but the quiet kind that seeps into your bones and whispers, "You're still here." We sang along to the radio, badly, and stopped for pie at a roadside diner that still looked like it belonged in 1975. Grace flirted shamelessly with the waiter, who couldn't have been a day over 30. I nearly choked on my coffee laughing. "See," she said, wagging her fork at me, "men still smile at you if you give them a reason to." I rolled my eyes. "Oh, please, Grace, I'm 70. She grinned, "And still got more spark than half these 20-year-olds. We reached the coast by sunset. The sky was painted in streaks of orange and rose gold. I stepped out of the car and just stood there, staring at the endless water ahead of me. The wind whipped around my face, and for a second, I closed my eyes and imagined Frank standing beside me, his hand brushing mine. Grace walked up behind me and said quietly, "You look like someone remembering something important." I nodded. I'm remembering me." We walked along the sand in silence for a while. The ocean roared, like it was telling secrets only the brave could hear. And when the first wave touched my feet, I felt it. A pulse, a spark. Like the girl I used to be was still somewhere inside, waiting for me to find her. That night, as I sat on the balcony of our small motel room, you could play your part in the Date Flowers party, where I will be grateful for you. Listening to the waves crash in the dark, I wrote in my notebook. I thought my birthday was canceled. Turns out, my life was just starting again. I didn't know what waited for me back home, but I knew this much: I wasn't going to live small anymore. By the time Grace dropped me off back home, I swear my heart felt 10 years younger. The ocean air had done something to me, maybe washed away some of the bitterness that had been clinging there for too long. We hugged tight in the driveway. Grace whispered, "Don't you dare disappear for another 20 years, you hear me?" I smiled. "You couldn't lose me if you tried." As she drove off, I stood there for a while, looking at my house, the same place that had always felt safe. But lately, a little too quiet. The flowers out front had wilted. It was from Linda. I opened it carefully, half expecting something warm, but instead it read, "Mom, since you weren't answering your phone, I assumed you were ignoring me. Mark and I dropped by to check on you. The house was unlocked. We cleaned up a little. Hope you don't mind. No apology, no warmth, just control wrapped up in politeness." I looked around. My photos had been rearranged, like she wanted the house to look neater. Even the small framed picture of Frank that used to sit by my bed was gone from its place. I found it later, tucked in a drawer. My throat tightened, not from anger this time, from understanding. For the first time, I saw what Linda had become. Not cruel, not evil, just scared of losing control, scared of facing her own reflection in me. I sat down in my chair, that old leather one with Frank's shape still in it, and whispered, "She's not protecting me. She's erasing me." The realization didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It just made me steady, like the tide that rolls back, calm but unstoppable. That night, I wrote again in my notebook, "You can clean my house, but you can't clean away who I am." And then I did something small but powerful. I called the locksmith. The next morning, I'd have new locks and a brand new key. It wasn't revenge, it was peace. And I wasn't going to let anyone take that away again. The next morning felt strange, lighter somehow. The locksmith, a kind young man with freckles and a quiet smile, changed the locks while I made coffee. When he handed me the new set of keys, it felt like he was giving me my freedom back. I even laughed to myself as I locked the door for the first time. A laugh I hadn't heard in years. By noon, I was painting again. I had this new canvas, a wide open road leading into the sunrise. I didn't even realize I was painting myself. But peace never stays long, does it? Just as I was cleaning my brushes, my phone lit up. Linda. For a second, I thought about ignoring it. But curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" Her voice came sharp. "Mom, why is your key not working?" I felt my heartbeat slow. "Because I changed the lock, sweetheart. ... There was silence, the kind that buzzes in your ears. "You what?" "I changed the locks. I need a little privacy, that's all." "Privacy?" She laughed bitterly. "You're 70 years old, Mom, not some teenager sneaking around." Her words stung, but I didn't flinch. "Exactly. I'm 70, and for the first time, I'm doing something for myself." She didn't like that. I could hear the anger crackle through the line. "You can't just shut us out, after everything we've done for you." I almost laughed. "Linda, everything you've done for me? You canceled my birthday, remember? Called it a circus. Mom, you're being ridiculous." "No," I interrupted softly. "For once, I'm being real." There was a long pause. I imagined her standing on her porch, jaw tight, phone clutched in her hand. Then, in a quieter voice, she said, "You've really changed." "I hope so," I whispered. "I've been asleep too long." And then she hung up. I stared at the phone, the quiet hum of the lines still echoing in my ears. For the first time in years, her anger didn't shake me. It just passed through me, like wind through an open window. I put the phone down, looked at my half-finished painting, that road disappearing into the sunrise, and smiled. I didn't know it then, but that road was about to take me somewhere I never expected, somewhere Linda could never follow. That afternoon, the sky turned the color of soft honey, the kind of light that makes you feel like everything's okay, even when it isn't. I had just come back from lunch with Grace. We'd found this cozy Mexican place downtown, the kind with faded photos on the walls and music that made your heart dance. We laughed over enchiladas and hibiscus tea, and for an hour, I forgot about all the drama. I even forgot Linda. When I got home, I noticed something strange. An envelope, tucked neatly under my front door. My hands trembled before I even picked it up. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten. And the moment I saw that small looping handwriting, I knew. It was from Chloe. I sank into my chair, the letter shaking in my hands. The paper smelled faintly of her lavender lotion. I unfolded it slowly and started to read. "Dear Grandma, I don't know how to start this except by saying I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything that's happening. I'm sorry Mom and Dad have gone this far. When I found out they sent a lawyer to your house, I wanted to scream. I told them they were being cruel. We fought, bad. Dad said if I kept taking your side, I could find somewhere else to live. So that's exactly what I'm going to do." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. "I found a room near campus, Grandma. It's tiny, but it's mine. I'd rather live small than live with people who treat you this way." You always told me dignity isn't for sale. I get that now. I love you, Grandma. Not for what you give me, but for who you are. Your girl, always, Chloe. By the time I reached the last line, my tears were falling faster than I could wipe them. She was leaving her home, for me. My heart ached, but not from sadness, from pride. I grabbed the phone with trembling fingers and called her immediately. Grandma? Her voice came through soft, almost like she'd been waiting for me. Sweetheart, I just read your letter. I hope you're not mad, she whispered. Mad? No, my love. I'm proud. So proud. But I don't want you struggling because of me. This isn't a struggle, Grandma, she said firmly. It's a choice, and it's the right one. Her voice had strength I'd never heard before. She was her own woman now. When we hung up, I sat by the window, the sunset melting across the sky. The golden light washed over my living room like forgiveness. I thought about everything, the anger, the silence, the broken trust. And yet somehow, in the middle of it all, my granddaughter had bloomed into someone strong. For the first time in months, I didn't feel defeated. I felt redeemed. I didn't know it yet, but that letter was only the beginning. Something or someone else was about to remind me I wasn't alone in this fight. A few days after Chloe's letter, life slowed down again. I'd wake up early, make my coffee just the way I liked it, strong with a splash of cream, and sit by the window while the city stretched awake. There was peace in the quiet, in the sound of nothing urgent. No calls demanding money, no guilt pressing on my chest, just silence, and me learning to breathe again. But peace has a funny way of bringing unexpected company. That Thursday afternoon, I stopped by the little bookstore near Chloe's campus. She worked there part-time now, her first real job. I wandered through the aisles, tracing my fingers along the spines of cookbooks and travel guides. I was flipping through a baking book when my phone started to ring. Unknown number. For a second, I almost ignored it. But something— Hello? Mrs. Bennett? The voice was calm, kind, and a little nervous. Yes, this is she. My name is Clara. I'm the mother of one of your granddaughter Chloe's roommates. My stomach dropped. Is she all right? Oh, yes, she's perfectly fine, Clara said quickly. Actually, I'm calling for another reason. Chloe told me a little about what's been going on with your family, and I just wanted to tell you something. Her tone softened. I went through the same thing about 10 years ago. My kids treated me like a walking ATM. Every time they called, it was about money. I tried to buy their love until one day I stopped. It broke me at first, but it was the best thing I ever did. I leaned against a shelf, her words sinking deep. And what happened after that? It was hard, she said. They were angry. We didn't talk for almost 2 years. But when they finally came back, they came back different. They respected me, not my wallet. They came back because they wanted me, not what I could give. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. You really think it gets better? I know it does, she said gently. Because I see it in Chloe. That girl talks about you with so much love, Mrs. Bennett. You raised her right. You're doing the hard thing, but it's the right thing. I swallowed hard. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that today. When I hung up, I sat there in the aisle, surrounded by quiet shelves and the smell of old paper. Tears filled my eyes, but they weren't the heavy kind anymore. They were light, healing. That stranger's words felt like a hand on my shoulder, steadying me when I didn't even know I was about to fall. I walked home that evening with a strange calm in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I was finally standing up for myself. And I didn't know it yet, but someone else was about to show up at my door. Someone I hadn't seen since the day everything fell apart. It was a gray Sunday morning when it happened. I remember the soft drizzle tapping on my window, the smell of coffee drifting through the kitchen, and the radio murmuring old country tunes in the background. I'd just settled into my armchair with my knitting when I heard it. 3 slow knocks on the front door. Firm, hesitant, familiar. For a second, my heart froze. Nobody ever came unannounced anymore. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the door, each step heavy with a mix of fear and hope I didn't want to admit. When I opened it, there she was, Linda, my daughter. She stood on the porch, hair damp from the rain, eyes red as if she'd been crying for days. She looked older somehow, not just in her face, but in the way her shoulders slumped, in the tired sigh she let out the second our eyes met. "Mom," she whispered, "can I come in?" I didn't answer. I just stepped aside and let her pass. The same house she once called a waste of money suddenly felt too quiet for the storm of memories rushing through it. She walked to the living room, glancing around, at the photos, the couch, the little ceramic angel she'd given me when she was 10. Her voice trembled. "You kept all this the same?" I nodded slowly. Why wouldn't I? Linda sat down, clutching her purse like it held her courage. I didn't know how to say it. "Mom, but I'm sorry. For everything. For the birthday, for the things I said." Her words cracked in the middle. "I was so stressed. Mark lost his job around that time, and we were fighting a lot. I blamed you because, I don't know, it was easier. I just listened. No interruptions, no judgment, just years of silence between us, finally breaking. I thought canceling your birthday was no big deal," she continued, her eyes shining with tears. "But Chloe, she told me what it did to you. How hurt you were. How proud you acted, even when you were breaking inside." I felt my throat tighten. "I wasn't proud, sweetheart. I was surviving." Linda looked up at me then, really looked. "You didn't deserve that, Mom. I've been selfish for so long. And now I'm paying for it." She paused, swallowing hard. "Mark and I, we separated last month." The words hit me like a quiet earthquake. She kept talking, voice shaking. He kept saying I turned cold, like I didn't know how to love anyone anymore. Maybe he was right. Maybe I learned that from the way I treated you. The silence that followed wasn't angry or awkward. It was raw, filled with the sound of rain and 2 hearts trying to remember how to reach each other again. I reached across the table, placing my hand on hers. "Linda, people make mistakes, but the only ones who never heal are the ones who stop trying." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I don't want to stop trying, Mom. I want to fix this. I miss you." And just like that, after all the years of pride and pain, I felt something inside me finally unclench. I squeezed her hand and smiled softly. "Then let's start with some coffee, and maybe a story or 2. She laughed through her tears. "Only if you promise not to make me your story's villain." "Oh, honey," I chuckled. "You were never the villain. Just a lost chapter." For the first time in a long while, I felt warmth fill the house again. But as we talked and cried and laughed, I couldn't help but notice something strange. The way she kept glancing toward her phone. Face flickering with worry. I didn't ask that day, but something in my gut told me. Her story wasn't as simple as it seemed. That night, after Linda left, I couldn't sleep. The sound of rain still echoed in my ears, but my mind kept circling back to her eyes, that flicker of worry she couldn't quite hide. It wasn't just guilt, it was fear. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A text from her. "Can I come over again tonight? There's something I didn't tell you." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Of course, sweetheart. Dinner at 6. All day. I felt the weight of that message pressing on my chest. I cooked her favorite, Roast chicken with mashed potatoes, just like when she was a little girl. The smell filled the house with memories I wasn't sure I was ready to feel again. At exactly 6, I heard her car pull up, but when she stepped inside, something was off. Her hands were shaking, her eyes darting like she was trying to hold herself together. "Mom," she whispered, setting her purse down on the table. "I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else." I felt the air still. "All right, honey. Take your time." She took a deep breath. After Mark lost his job, things got bad. He got into some trouble with money, debt collectors, unpaid loans. For a moment, all I could do was stare at her. My daughter, the same woman who once said she wouldn't waste a dime on me, now sitting across my kitchen table, broke, scared, and shaking like a child. I felt something strange then. Not anger, not pity, just love. Pure, aching, motherly love. "Linda," I said quietly, "why didn't you tell me sooner?" She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Because I didn't deserve your help. Not after what I did to you." I reached over and held her trembling fingers. "You're my daughter. You'll always deserve my help. But this time, it's not going to be about money. We're going to fix this the right way." She looked at me, confused. "What do you mean?" I smiled softly. "You've spent your life thinking money can fix everything, but what you need now is strength, not dollars. I'll go with you tomorrow. We'll face this together." Her shoulders shook as she broke down crying. Really crying, the kind that comes from deep inside. I pulled her into my arms and just let her be that little girl again, the one who used to run into my kitchen after school and tell me every secret. We stayed like that for a long while, holding each other, the smell of cold rain still clinging to her hair. As she finally calmed, she whispered, "I don't deserve you, Mom." I brushed her hair gently. "Maybe not, but I always wanted you anyway." And for the first time, I saw peace flicker behind her eyes, fragile but real. What neither of us knew, though, was that the next morning would bring something that would change everything again. Something that would make me realize forgiveness isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. Morning sunlight spilled through the curtains, soft and golden, warming the quiet kitchen. I was already dressed, sipping my coffee when Linda walked in. Eyes swollen, but calm. She looked different that morning. Not the same woman who'd once thrown words like knives. Not the same daughter who turned my 70th birthday into a memory I'd tried to forget. There was a gentleness about her now, a kind of tired strength. We drove together to the small bank downtown. The rain had cleared, leaving the streets shiny and new, like the world was trying to start over too. Inside, the loan officer explained everything: the debts, the interest, the mistakes. Linda's hands trembled on the table, but she didn't hide behind me. Not this time. She spoke clearly, took responsibility, and promised to set things right. I just sat beside her, quietly proud, watching her face the storm she used to run from. Afterward, we went to a small diner nearby, the kind with sticky tables and a jukebox that still played old country songs. Linda ordered coffee and pancakes, and for a moment, it felt like time had folded back, taking us to simpler days. She looked at me over her cup. "You know, your 70th birthday was supposed to be the worst day of your life." I smiled. "It almost was. But it wasn't," she said softly. "Because that day was when everything started to fall apart. And maybe that's what we needed, to break a little before we could really fix things." I looked at her then, my little girl, grown and bruised by life, but still standing, and I realized he was right. Sometimes life doesn't destroy you, it just cracks you open enough to let the light in. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small white box. I know it's late, she said, pushing it toward me. But happy birthday, Mom. Inside was a simple silver bracelet. On the inside, engraved in tiny letters, were the words, "No more clowns, no more circuses, just us." My throat tightened. I laughed and cried all at once. You remembered. She smiled. How could I forget? We sat there a long time, two women who'd lost and found each other more than once. The waitress came by and asked if we wanted dessert, and I said yes, because after 70 years, I'd learned that life's too short to ever say no to pie. That evening, I walked home alone under a pink and gold sunset. The street was quiet, except for the wind whispering through the trees. I didn't have balloons or candles or a crowd singing off-key, but I had peace and love. And for the first time in years, I felt whole again. When I reached my porch, my phone buzzed. A message from Linda. Chloe and I are planning something small next week. Just dinner, no circus, promise. I smiled, typing back slowly. That sounds perfect. I'll bring the pie. And as I set the phone down and looked up at the twilight sky, I whispered to myself, maybe birthdays aren't about being celebrated. Maybe they're about remembering what and who was worth celebrating all along. Then I closed my eyes and let the peace stay this time.